Good evening. Today, Baruch Hashem, we're going to finish our series, the psychology of the mind and the soul, soulmate relationships. This is going to be the 10th and final lecture. And Bezrat Hashem, we'll finish also in the next week or two, hopefully, the Hebrew series as well. This lecture will be Bezrat Hashem for the Leda Kala, easy delivery and safe delivery to Lori Jackie Bat Aliza. Will be Lerfuat Yoshua Eshil Ben Lea Nomi, and it will be also Leavdil Leilui Nishmat Zeyev Ben Surya, just passed away, and also Leilui Nishmat Chana Rivka Bat Reizel and Iris Bat Irene. Also Bezrat Hashem to the success of Alexander Shimon Ben Avraham Brink, and a special occasion, Baruch Hashem, it's for to honor Jack and Lillian Saturn for the 60th anniversary. Baruch Hashem, I wish everybody this blessing from their children, grandchildren, from their whole family and friends. They're all wishing them congratulations. Bezrat Hashem, may they live long life with happiness. 60 years together, bli ayin hara. All right, so Baruch Hashem, situation in the world, as you see, getting better, especially in Israel. Things almost went back to fully function. Here in New York, it's still not 100%, but President Trump announced on Friday, I believe, that he will allow all the synagogues to act as normal, and therefore we will start going back to physical lecture in Queens and Brooklyn and in other places next week, right after Shavuot. Shavuot will be Friday and Saturday. Bezrat Hashem following Monday, in 8 days from now, we will be back in Queens. Please, everybody, check on my website, divineinformation.com, on event, to see that the lecture is on and what time and what place it will be, the Brooklyn lecture. The Queens will be the same place. For the Brooklyn, we don't know 100% yet. That's why I don't want to announce it officially. But you will please look at my website and you will know exactly all the details. Okay. Last lecture was very interesting that we finished it with the words of the Mishnah in Masechet Ketubot, page 82. המקדש את האישה על מנת שאין עליה נדרים. Someone who get married to a woman with condition that she has no vows prior to the marriage. Obviously, what vows we talking about? So I explained about 20 minutes just about this. That's how we ended last lecture, that a woman that made all kinds of vows that she won't eat meat and she won't drink wine and she won't dress nice clothes, meaning she want to torture herself and prevent herself from all kinds of pleasure and all kinds of things, she will make the husband not interested in her because she behaved not in a normal way of life. And the Rambam in Ilchot Ishut, the Rambam writes that everything that women normally do, such as in our case makeup, perfume, whatever they do to become beautiful for their men, if this woman chose not to behave in a normal way and she likes to torture herself, that's a sign of being not. This is basically self-torture, and it's like some kind of masochism. She's actually torturing herself. It comes obviously sometimes from the subconscious, and Rav Shlomo explained, Rav Hoffman explained that this kind of masochism creates rejection from her husband that is actually disgusted by the way she behaved. And this is a conditional marriage, that if you have any of these strange behaving that you accepted on yourself before the marriage, therefore the marriage will be retroactively from the first minute will be annulled, will be dismissed. It means that the Kiddushin actually never took place. There's such an expression in halacha, in Jewish law, that if you get married and you hide the substantial information from the future spouse, if a man comes and a woman doesn't tell him all the story, she doesn't tell him all the truth, is hiding things from him, he can come later on to the Beit Din and say, this was all a scam. It's deceiving. I went into a contract, signing a ketubah with 2 witnesses, thinking I'm getting this, and as a matter of fact, I got something totally different. Well, obviously, in a case like that, there is a serious problem. So that was the last lecture. We will move on, Bezrat Hashem. Today, like I said, we're going to finish this series, God willing. I asked Rav Hoffman about, unfortunately, the many divorce cases of our generation. I told him that, to the best of my knowledge, most of the divorce cases, the women are the one who are pushing for that divorce. How is it working together with what the Gemara says in Masechet Ketubot, page 85, Tav lemetav tandu milemeitav armelu. Translation, this is an Aramic expression, famous one, that a woman in her psychology will do everything she can as long as she won't stay alone. Not that a man would love to stay alone, obviously it's also would want to have a woman, but by the women, the torture is even higher than what the man has. Therefore, she was willing to compromise a lot as long as she doesn't stay by her parents for the rest of her life. Maybe, this is my guess, maybe one of the reasons for it is men can always move out. He became 30, 35, whatever the case. He doesn't have to stay living by his parents for the rest of his life. He can go buy a house and live on his own. By women, it was not modest that a woman will move out of her parents and get herself an apartment, even if it was a rich family. Today, obviously, girls do it. They leave the house, they live alone, they live with roommates. But like I always say, the world today is totally different than the way it should have been and the way it's always been. And by women, because they don't leave their parents' home until they get married, the torture by them, it's even harder because everybody in their family, the sisters, the brothers, they're getting married, they leave the house and she stays alone there. And she's stuck by the parents and she has the pressure by the parents are upset that she's home. And it actually gives her probably more depression than when it would be with a man. That could be one way to explain it. We don't know exactly, because these are the words of the Gemara and Chazal, the sages. They were the greatest psychologists in history. By knowing the mind of people and their psychology, no one was greater than them ever, and no one will ever be greater than them, because they didn't only speak from beautiful and unbelievable brilliance. They had the whole Torah in the palm of their hands. In their head, everything, every book, every midrash, everything God said about relationship, about psychology, about the way people react, about traits, personality issues, everything they knew, which no one today knows even 1% of what they knew. Therefore, you see the difference between what they say and what some of the psychologists of our days are actually suggesting to people, which is the exact opposite of the truth sometimes. Unfortunately. So, let's move on. So the question is, if the Gemara said that a woman will do everything she can not to be alone, why in our days women actually push more towards divorce than actually the men would push towards divorce, right? And Rav Hoffman answered, remember Rav Hoffman only passed 3 or 4 years ago. So it's not, he didn't live in past generation, he was actually living in our days. And he answered, in the past, women did not get formal education. They did not go to school. Not Jewish women and not Gentiles. They did not know how to read and write, most of them. If they knew something, they'll learn from their brothers at home. When they come from yeshiva and they learn, the brother teach her a little bit, then she would know. But she did not go to school like girls today go to yeshiva, Bet Yaakov, they get formal education. Some women know Torah, sometimes even better than the boys. If the boy is not into learning, you check a girl 18 years old, you check her brother that is more or less the same age, and you see that the girl knows a lot more than him. But something like this did not happen in past generation. So women, they could not manage without their husband. Being alone, they obviously couldn't manage. Today the situation changed. Women has education and they get profession, and today with the college and all these degrees and all these careers that they develop, they are much more independent than they used to be before. That's why they're not financially depending on the men as it used to be. Back in time, she needs a man to take care of her. So according to the Torah, when a father dies, if he did not leave a will, the only ones who inherit him is his sons, not the daughters. If the father wants to give to the daughters, he has to write a will specifically saying who gets what. He can give everything to his daughters, there's no problem, as long as he wrote it down. If he dies without a will, according to the Torah, the boys share his estate between them. The wife gets her ktubah, whatever was written to her in a wedding, and the boys get everything. What's going to be with the girls? Of course, the boys that inherit their father, they can never get rid of their sister. They must take care of them, feed them, give them a place to live, until they get married. Once they get married, their husband's obligation is to take care of them financially. That's why they don't inherit their father. They're going to get married and follow their husbands. That's the normal situation. What happened if a girl, for whatever reason, did not get married? It did not work out for her. The brothers must take care of her. Also, if the father left nothing, and now they have to go and collect charity to live. It's the obligation of the boys to go and collect charity. Women will not go and knock on door to collect charity. First of all, it's not modest. Second of all, it's not safe. Don't forget, in the old days, there was no electric, no lights in the street, no neon lights, no cars, none of these things. The houses were all dark with some candles. A woman will go in evening time and knock on door. Who knows where it's going to end? So it's not safe, also it's not modest. So the boys must go and collect and feed the entire family, include the girls. So Baruch Hashem, the rules are very, very clever and also very clear. Of course, when we see the way the world today is, I don't have to tell you that everything got messed up, but we learned what's the original opinion of God. What does he really want? What the liberal lefties and the feminists and all the people around out there that challenge and contradict the Torah, we already know. We see it every day. So, the woman, her confidence, financial confidence, when she has a man, he works, he takes care of the family, and that's it. By the man is the opposite. The Gemara in Ktubot, page 64, the Gemara said that the main suffering of the man without relationship is the actual intimacy, that he doesn't have the intimacy. Meaning, generally, of course there's always an exception to the rule, the woman will suffer that she doesn't have a support, which means psychological support by a man who protects her and takes care of her and financially takes care of her. That's why she will do everything she can to be with a man, even if she's not in love with him, as long as she doesn't stay alone. And I added from my own understanding, let's understand that what I added, that probably also because she doesn't want to stay by her parents for the rest of her life, it's not so comfortable for her. That's why the women will do everything they can not to be alone. And the man, his problem will be mainly that he needs intimacy. He cannot live all his life without relationship, and as results of that, he will probably make a lot of sins. On the other hand, we also found in the Gemara in Masechet Yebamot, page 113, more than a woman wants to get married, the woman wants to get married. She is more worried Many times I've seen throughout the years in relationship when a man and a woman are dating, even by secular people, they are boyfriend and girlfriend for years. The wife, the girlfriend or the girl that she's dating the guy will always tell the rabbi, tell him something. What is he waiting for? Usually by the boy, he doesn't come to urge and to push, hey, tell her she still doesn't want to get married. Usually it doesn't go that way. Usually the girls will be the one who push for formal marriage more than the actual men. But we explain about this Gemara that the women in general wants to get married, but after she's been married, if she was already married and she get divorced, it's not as suffering for her as not to be married at all. It's very interesting. Why? I was already married. I'm not, I'm afraid to use the wrong word, but in our society, they may look at it as, oh, you didn't succeed. People think that it's always in the hand of the person to get married or not. Yes, some people want to live and make scenes. They don't want to get married, so they drag the years. They had many chances to get married and they didn't want. That's their fault. Most people that don't get married, it's really not their fault. It's either gzera mishamayim, or Hashem is keeping them waiting, or it's some kind of sins that they do that canceling their basher to get married. So it's not always 100% directly in the hand of a person. Most single guys and girls, if you ask them, hey, why are you not married? They say, asking me, ask the boss. It's not my decision. I pray for it every day, and they do. The Chazal are telling us in Masechet Nida, page 45, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave extra wisdom to the woman more than a man. So Rav Steinemann, he was one of the biggest rabbis in our generation who passed, I think, 3 years ago. Rav Steinemann, a big tzaddik as well, he said that it doesn't mean that the woman is wiser than the man. It means that she has natural instincts to specific things that the man doesn't have those instincts. One of the things is that she is able to read people. So a guest coming to the house, she would feel if he's a positive character or a negative, even if he would not say a word, just sitting at the table and eat, which not all men will have this specialty unless they are big Talmidei Chachamim that knows a lot of Torah, they know body language, so they know how to read people. But other than that, a regular, ordinary husband and wife, not great scholars of Torah, the wife will have an advantage of reading people that the husband will not have. Also, by women, her actual intelligence is more developed. She's better in doing things, in decorating, in cooking, in preparing, in organizing, in cleaning, all these things. She's better naturally. And of course, every time we mention a rule, you always remember there's an exception to the rule. So if you know that you are one of these exceptions to the rule, you clean better than your wife, you're more developed, you're more practical, you have more talent, and you read people better, doesn't mean that that's the norma in the world, okay? The woman, like the Gemara say in Masechet Brachot, page 10, Isha makeret ba'orchin yoter min ha'ish. A woman detects by the guest more than the man. This is what I just said. That's 100%. I've seen it in the last 25 years. Women are very clever when it comes to, they have this like sixth sense to read people. Also, she can tell different characters. She can tell you this guy is like this guy is like that, this girl is like this, that girl is... You ask her, how do you know? They hardly say 2 words in a whole table, in a whole meal. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. And it's really true. Also in business, the husband wants to go into business, he brings people into the house or to the office, and she comes right after that. Don't make the deal with these people. No, they're not good, I'm telling you. And he usually doesn't listen. And later on, she says, I told you. That's usually how it goes. Also, the Gemara say in another place, something that looks like contradiction, but it's not at all. The Gemara say, Nashim da'atam kala alehem. Women are like light-headed in specific ways. Rashi explained that it's easier to trick them and seduce them. Meaning, I'll give you an example. First, they know better how to seduce and get what they want than the man knows. And they use their talent and beauty to do it. And that's why in every commercial they always take these pretty women to convince the customer, or whenever you go to stores, they always pick which women will be, that they can come and convince you to buy their products. So that's one thing. But on the other hand, if a man does not treat his wife nicely and doesn't give her love and attention, if she goes to places and there will be another guy who will start giving her attention and compliments, it will be a lot easier for her to fall and, God forbid, to make a horrible sin and basically destroy their family and the marriage. And it will be a lot easier for her to fall because she's so hungry for attention and love that she, chas v'shalom, in a moment of not paying attention, she may do or almost do something that she will regret it for the rest of her life. So this whole infatuation things, and it's not reality, it's an imagination. And the imagination by women is a lot more creative and developed. It's also to convince her men to do things against logic. She has the power for it. Or it's easier to convince her to do things against logic. In the name of love, many people did the most stupid things in history. People lost everything they have for a week or two of love, which later they just realized it was all an imagination, right? We see it, millions of cases like this out there. How many times I heard over the years that guy did stupid things and they basically lost fortune. And I asked him, how did you do such stupid thing? He said, I don't know, I wasn't thinking. She did this and she did that to me, and that's where I ended. You understand? Same thing the other way around. So the more your imagination is developed and creative, the more you live in illusion. That's what it means, da'atam kala, not that they're chas v'shalom stupid, the opposite. I told you they're actually more clever and have an extra sense. But the heart, this is really how to conclude this whole topic, the heart is more dominant than the brain. When it comes to the ladies, you tell them a little sad story. If somebody will knock on the door, wow, my son, my daughter, we're hungry at home, they sick, immediately she begins to cry, she runs, take all her money and give it to him. She will even take her wedding ring, take it, sell it, and buy her family what you need. By the man, he will still use his head. Okay, let me help you, but he's still thinking. But when it comes to the heart, as soon as the heart gets into action and she begins to cry, that's, who knows what's going to be next. This is all nature. This is the nature of men, this is the nature of women, and again, there's always an exception to the rule. The Gemara in Masechet Yoma, the Gemara in page 71, the Gemara says, Elechem ishim ekra, Amar Rabbi Birchia. Those are the high scholar of Torah, that looks like women, but they strong like men. Rashi say, what does it mean? That they are down to earth, humbled, and weak. Who is physically stronger normally, men or women? The answer is men. Again, there's exception to the rule, but most men are stronger than women. Physically, this is the way Hashem made the world. So, when a person learns a lot of Torah, he becomes more tired, he has more fatigue, physically is more weak. Why? Because all his mind is going into the Torah, it makes the body weak. Torah matisha kocho shel adam, that's what the Gemara say. It takes away all the energy of the man. Ishim, lashon isha, comes from the word isha, woman. He did not say anashim. Anashim, it's men, it could be men and women. Isha or Nashim, like we say, it's women only. So why the woman is generally has more humility? the explanation for that is because naturally the woman always have feelings that she's missing something. She doesn't like this about herself, and she doesn't like that, and it could be the look, it could be the weight, it could be, she compares herself to other friends, it can be she doesn't like her home, she's not feeling comfortable with her home, or she doesn't have enough jewelry, or all kinds of things like this. This feeling that I'm missing something makes her feel, I don't want to say low self-esteem, but that's something similar to that. Anav, humble, is someone that understands I'm far from being perfect. Talmidei Chachamim, the more knowledgeable you are in Torah, the more you learn how much you are missing to reach the level of being a righteous or being a chassid. So automatically you feel nothing. I'm nothing. Who am I? I mean, when I read Rambam, I read all these big giant Chachamim, I can compare myself to them. So I'm far from being perfect. Usually women will always be the first to admit when their man gives her a compliment and say, wow, you're so perfect, you're so amazing, wow, you know, everything about you is so good and so perfect. She will always jump and say, no, I'm far from being perfect. What are you talking about? I have this and I have that and this. Men depend. If they're naturally humble in general, they will also say, what are you talking about? I'm not a tzaddik, I'm not perfect, I'm far away. But some men will actually love the title. Yeah, perfect, you're right, I am perfect. Okay, so this is the idea here. Rav Shlomo enjoyed very much from this expression of the Yavetz, one of the biggest rabbis ever, that the Yetzer Hara always come to a person with a new face. It doesn't come with the same face of a week ago or a month ago or a year ago. Well, because when he comes with this face, it doesn't work, immediately he's going to come with a new face. And if that doesn't work, he's going to come with a new face. Meaning that a person is always changing. Person is not the same. When you're 40, you're not like you were 20. When you're 60, you're not like when you used to be when you were 40. So the Yetzer Hara has to always change in order for him to defeat you now. What was easy 20 years ago, when you're 40, it will be a lot easier. So he has to come in a different way. And when you're 60, with more life experience and you're stronger after all these years, he has to come with a different face, because the tricks he used to do to you 20 years ago will not work when you're 60, okay? So as long as a person is evolving and developing, as results of that, he will always have new challenges that he did not have before. Sometimes a person thinks, 5 years, I'm great. Look, I have not made one sin in this thing. And all of a sudden comes the Satan with a new face, and a minute or two later, boom, the person collapses and is going back to square one. It's frustrating. It's very, very frustrating, because he was sure already he came out of that sinful life, and all of a sudden the Satan made him a trick and knocked him down, and he's mamash like going back 5 years or 10 years in time. When it comes to the good inclination and the evil inclination, Sigmund Freud, one of the famous psychologists, came to the conclusion in the end of his days that the bad and the good, they both come from the same source. They both come from the same power, the same thing. That's where the good comes out, and the same thing, the bad comes out from the same thing. It's not two separate things. Rav Shlomo said it's true, but the Rambam already knew it hundreds of years before Freud. The only problem is that in the colleges, they don't know exactly who the Rambam is. In Washington, they have a statue of the Rambam as one of the greatest people who ever lived. They have like 18 statues over there, and Rambam is one of them. But in universities, most places, they don't know about Rambam, besides the Maimonides hospital that is named after the Rambam, and a hospital in Israel that it's called Rambam in Haifa, in the north. Yes, there are some places we acknowledge, because after all, the Rambam was also a great doctor, physical doctor. He was the doctor of the Sultan of Egypt, the Muslim Sultan or Caliph. So he was taking care of the king over there. So the Rambam was very famous even among the Arabs. In the beginning of his book, the Rambam, 8 Prakim, 8 chapters, he writes that the spirit of a man, spirit of a person, everything comes out of the same place. It's one, achati, one is. So it's very important foundation. Nefesh Adam achati. You should know what comes from the spirituality of a person. Whatever you see comes from the same thing, same source. One source for everything. And Rav Shlomo add on top of it, we have Eser Sfirot. In Kabbalah, we divided to 10 different levels. That the entire creation is always based on these 10 Sfirot. And every human being has all 10 in him. But by one person, you will feel one of the Sfirot more than the others, and by another person, you will feel a different Sfira more than another person. Therefore, also the same person himself individually, sometimes in his life, one of the Sfira will be the highlight, and a few years later, a different one will be the highlight. Even by him, the mode is changing. So, therefore, a person, his job in this world is to learn how to work with this and combine them all together and turn everything into positive. Also, we should know that the desire, the sexual desire, what is the purpose of it? Why did Hashem make such thing in the world? As you can see what's happening today in the world, it drives the whole world crazy. Basically everything, all the fashion world and the music world and the movies and so many things, it's all is driven by that desire. This basically runs the whole world. So the question is, why the creator of the world made such thing? Maybe the world would be better off without it. The answer is, the main purpose, it's not the pleasure. The pleasure has a reason, but it wasn't the main purpose. The main purpose is to take all species that they should be interested to bring children to the world. Whether you are a human being, whether you are an animal, you would want to have more children. But to help you to do the right thing, Hashem made it very appealing to a person. Because a person has this physical desire that he runs after, that would get him to bring more children to the world. Try to imagine a world without that pleasure, without this, if there was no such thing. Most likely the number of the people in the world will be probably 10 times less than today. If today we have close to 8 billion people, probably without that it will be maybe 800 million. It's a wild guess, we don't know for sure of course, but the idea is clear. Many children came to the world because they had a momentary desire. The man and his wife decided to be together for the desire. Later on they had a child. Unfortunately today, people will act on their desire, and after that, when they finally is about to get a child, unfortunately, many of them will go and make an abortion. They abort the kid and murder him and cut him to pieces. Why is it? Convenience. They are not interested. Or lack of faith. I don't have enough money to raise a child. It's not easy. It's going to cost me such and such. They don't understand that you don't really raise your children. When they come to the world, their creator gives them their own budget. As long as they're young, he gives them their budget through you. Once they become independent, their budget will go to them and not to you. Tinok ba velachmo beyado. Baby come with his bread in his hand, meaning the budget comes with him to the world. And it does not come out of your budget. If all people in the world will know that concept 100% and believe in it 100%, then probably 90% of the abortion will be prevented. But most of the abortions are because of financial reasons. Believe it or not, it's a tragedy even to think such thing. But because of such a foolish reason, they murder so many millions of babies. Sometimes the abortion comes from different reasons. Nothing to do with financial. Even very rich people, they still don't want. It's the burden of raising children or or maybe they decided to get divorced, the woman doesn't want to have a child on her own. Okay, it could be different reasons. But most of the reason is young people that they don't feel secure financially, and unfortunately they think it's a game to go and cut babies to pieces just because it's not convenient for you right now to raise a child. So, to fulfill the purpose, the real purpose, which means to give the world continuation, more people will come to the world and maintain the world, and the world will go on and on and on, Hashem gave an extra push for people to do it. But the people forgot the real purpose and focus on the assistant, which is the pleasure that will help you to want to do the right thing. It's similar to someone who calls his friend and says, I'm giving you this car, I want you to drive from here to Los Angeles. It will take you a few days to get there. You cannot go on a plane, this is a precious package, just keep driving. The person got a car and he forgot the main purpose. The purpose is to bring this diamond from here all the way to there. But he was so amazed by the car and how fancy it is and how beautiful it drives. So all he did, he was taking care of the car and enjoying the car and driving around, but he never fulfilled his actual purpose, which is to go from here to there. Because he was blinded by the pleasure of the car that was given to him as an assistance to do the right thing. And many people in life, for instance, food was given to people to keep them alive, give them nutrition and vitamins that will be able to function, to see well, to digest well, and all these things. But most people eat for the pleasure, not for health reason. Even though today it's much more common, you keep hearing about losing weight and health and all this. Bottom line, 99.9% of the people, when they come to eat, what motivates them to eat is actually the pleasure of the flavor of the food. That's why people always eat double or triple than what they're supposed to eat in a meal. Very hard for them to stop eating until they feel they explode. This is the joke. One person was in a meal and he ate. It was stuffed, and his brother told him, eat more. He said, no, I can't. The food came all the way up to my mouth already. He said to him, okay, so stick a finger in your throat, vomit, and then you'll have room to eat more food. You already enjoyed, you will enjoy more. He said, no, you fool. If I could stuck a finger in my throat, I would eat that pickle already. That means that there's no room to even push a little anything, So that's obviously the joke, but the point is clear. The point is that most people forget that physical desire were given for a reason. And the reason is not the main purpose. It's just an assistant to push you to the right thing. That's why also food has all kinds of appealing colors. And it's very interesting. Today they know by the color of the food what vitamins it has and what does it do and what it doesn't do. It's very interesting. Also, if you look at the vegetables, they all look like the organs on the body that they are meant for. Like carrots, it looks like the eyes. If you cut it, you see, it has like pupils inside. And all these other things, there's a nice video that shows every vegetable, what it helps in the body, and it looks exactly like that. For instance, there's nuts that looks like the brain, they are good for the brain. It looks exactly like brain. It's very interesting how Hashem, the creator of the world, hinted to us what food is good for what, especially with all these vegetables and fruit. So now we're going to talk a little bit about Koach HaHergel, the power of the habit. People have habits. It's your nature. That's you got used to it. Kocho shel Hergel. The Chizkuni, one of the biggest commentary on the Torah, on number 8, verse 18. He's speaking about the verse, Vayikach et HaLeviim tachat kol bechor. And this is what he writes. If all the firstborn people, Ovdim, Aya Baem Negef, if all the Bechorim, the firstborn, will have a negef, like a pandemic or a disease, שהרי אביו של זה בכור, שמא לא יהיה בכור ולא אבי אביו. לא הורגלו בעבודה. כשיבוא לעבוד, לא יהיה בקיא ונזהר בה. ויעשה שלא כעוגן וניגף. Meaning, if a person get used to do something crooked, it will be very difficult to change his way. If he will do it in a wrong way, the service in Bet HaMikdash, as a Levi, the Levites, they do service in Bet HaMikdash, right? So if they'll do it the wrong way, God forbid, it would lead to their death, as we saw with the sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, that they both died because they brought fire into Kodesh HaKodeshim, and they're not supposed to do it. So even when you do the service wrong in the house of God, you're actually risking your life. But the Levites, because they were chosen for generations, if Hashem would give the service to firstborn, and it will be very difficult to maintain all of them doing the right way. But because it's in a family of Levites, and them and their children and grandchildren and grandchildren until the end of days, they're already learning from their parents, who learn from their parents, who learn from their parents. It's in the family. They are very careful, and they already know how to do the service with their eyes closed even. Why? Because I go into it. It wasn't something for one of the kids in the family or for that kid, because if you go only by the firstborn, it will be a lot more complicated to teach them to do the right thing, because it's not 100% a family. What happens if the father is not a firstborn? How is he going to teach his firstborn to do the service? Right? That's why Hashem made it in such a way that the Levites, the Leviim, will not do anything besides holy services. Right? He will not work in all kinds of work out there. Only your job is to work in Bet HaMikdash. And that's why it also affected the way their fingers look and their arms. They are, thick and strong. Why? Because this is what you do for years. That's what happened. ולא יוכל לקופן ולמשמש את הנבל והכינור ויקלקלו את השיר. Meaning, this is what he says. He says, if you let the Levites walk out there, and they're going to have walking with their fingers, it's going to make the fingers not gentle. Maybe they'll get thick. Maybe they'll get a little bit not as soft as gentle. And they're supposed to play in the orchestra in Bet HaMikdash. You need gentle fingers. You play all the instruments, all the violins, all these tools that they have in Bet HaMikdash. If your fingers working, if you're a mechanic, if you're working in all kinds of things, you're cleaning animals, you're taking care of animals, you become too masculine and all these things, it's not going to fit the actual purpose why you're living for, which is to serve in a Bet HaMikdash. That's why the Leviim cannot do anything on the side. This is your job. You came to the world to work in the house of God and to do the service, which mainly is what? The music and the singing. It's unbelievable. There's Rashi in Masechet Yoma, page 4, the Gemara says, speaking about Kohen Gadol, the high priest, Kohen Gadol, the highest Kohen in the whole country, before Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, it's a special service, as we all know. And now they tell the Kohen, you have to separate, don't do anything. Preparation for the big day. Rish Lakish, one of the Tanaim, says, we learned it from Moshe Rabbeinu. Before he went up, a week before, he entered Machane Shechina, a place where the Shechina of Hashem, the spirits of Hashem landing. The Gemara said the words of Rav Matya ben Charash. It says that the reason that the Kohen is separating is to put fear in his mind, to threaten him. Why? Because the Torah is given with fear. Same thing Moshe Rabbeinu. Why Moshe Rabbeinu separated from his wife, separated from the nation? He's about to go up to get the Torah. And this is mamash like these days before Shavuot. Why? You don't receive the Torah while you're eating steak and drinking a whiskey or glass of wine. No. It has to be with fear. You have to be very serious. You have to be ready. and pay attention very carefully. That's why Mount Sinai event was a very scary event. I always tell those liberal people who constantly complain and say, no, why have to be so strict? Why does it have to be so scary? Why did Hashem give us the Torah in such a scary event? He could have made violin, background music, doesn't need fire, the floor did not have to shake, it didn't have siren. What do you need siren for? The voice of shofar is going everywhere, right? And Rashi explained, שתחול עליו אימה, he should have fear, בהיותו לבדו when he's alone, and will understand something big is about to happen. Something big is about to happen. You understand? So, because you know something big is about to happen, you focus your entire mind into what's coming. And that's the reason you separated, Moshe Rabbeinu separated himself, and that's why you separate the Kohen before, that's why you're separating the Kohen before he's going to go into Yom Kippur, into the service inside of Bet HaMikdash. Rav Shlomo said, Hoffman, he said that, from here we learn that the Torah ordered the man, the human being, to do things that brings him to fear from God. Do things that make you scared. Why? To scared from God, it's an honor. It's not something bad like some fools always think. It's an honor to fear God. Don't ever think, why are you so scared? I'm scared to make sins. You're not supposed to be scared of God. He's a loving Father, He's merciful, He will not do anything, He's not punishing. These ideologies, totally a lie. I know there are some people out there that's why they brainwash the people with, but they are totally misleading. And unfortunately, the people will pay the price for listening to these clowns. We've been speaking about it over the years, how much you have to be careful from this soft approach out there. So Rav Shlomo say, from here we see the Torah commands the human being to reach a high level of fear from Hashem, Yirat Shamayim, but to do all kinds of specific things, external things that brings him into fear. Why you need to fear? Because once you fear, you surrender. Your ego goes down, you surrender, and it brings you to Yirat Shamayim. Rav Shlomo Hoffman also said that the main claim against someone who actually committed a murder, someone went and did an act of murder, horrible sin, obviously. Everybody in the world understands that. It's not the actual murder only that it's horrible. It's the root of the problem who brought a person to do such thing. It's much deeper. And he proves it from the words of Rashi in Masechet Shabbat, page 88, 89 actually, on the words of the Gemara, that Moshe Rabbeinu went up to heaven. The angel asked him, what is a person that was born from a woman, meaning a human being, what does he do here, over here, when it's all angels? What is his soul? Obviously, his body was in a mountain, physical body, for 40 days, did not eat, did not drink. It was like in some kind of a mode of clinical death. But the soul went up to heaven. And the angels were complaining. So what is he doing here? He doesn't belong here. And he answered, I came to receive the Torah. And the angels asked God, keep the Torah by us, don't give it to people. And one of the questions that Moshe asked them, do you have jealousy among you? You're jealous? And Rashi say, are you capable of murdering each other? Because jealousy brings to murder. You think you're going to be able to murder each other? No. Why? Because you don't have jealousy. By us, there is jealousy. If we won't have Torah, we'll turn into murderers. So the root of a murder is the actual jealousy. It leads to anger, and anger leads to murder. We know the root. necessarily that the claim against the human being is not only why you killed, is why you actually reach a level of jealousy, which the Torah forbid. Otherwise, Moshe should have asked them, do you murder each other? That's not the way he asked them. He asked them, do you have jealousy? Why do you care if we have jealousy or not? Because jealousy leads to murder. It's obvious. Over there, it's the world of truth. You don't need to explain. From the fact that Moshe asked them, do you have jealousy among you? We see that jealousy is the source of murder and can lead to a lot of horrible things, to lashon hara, to gossip, to insult people, to ruin their life, to spread lies about them. And we know there are three things that destroys the life of a person: ata'ava, v'akin'a, v'akavod. The desires, the jealousy, and the honor, running after honor, meaning pride. Those are the ones who destroy the person and mess up his future. If a person will not find the root of the problem in his life that caused him to fail, he will never be able to overcome his problems. That's why first you have to find the root of the problem. And then once you know what causing you to behave the way you behave, you will never expose yourself to such a situation again. Right? And the words of the Graf, the Gaon Mivilna, we find that, if a person is not actually putting his finger on the root of the problem and ignore it and try by force to overcome his problem, it can actually make the situation worse. As we find in the words of the Gaon Mivilna, לא כאלו בעלי תאווה מתענים והתאווה מתגברת יותר. They say, you know what, I'm going to fast. And the fasting causes them more desire for food. I'm going to do this and this and that. That actually can trigger that later on you're going to come back with more force into that desire. Rav Shlomo said, because you never found the root of the problem. Rav Shlomo said, when it comes to desire for money, what are the reasons that a person runs after money? Of course, it's not all the people in the world. There is a very, very small percentage of people that are not so greedy and will not be dominant by money or materialism. But they are very, very small percentage. But most people, money dictates their life. It's all about money. You see religious communities, how it's all about money. The first question when they want to set up shidduch, they ask the shatchan or shatchanit, do they have money? What's the parents do? What's the family do? That's basically what dictates how they're going to make their decision. It's all about money. Money runs everything. Therefore, when they will build a synagogue, it will always be the fanciest in the world. They will tell you that they love Hashem and they honor Him so much. That's why the synagogue is so fancy. But the real truth is, they love themselves. They are very spoiled people, very materialistic. They cannot enjoy a day in their life without the money and fancy lifestyle and fancy utensils and fancy clothing and fancy cars and jewelry and vacations and yachts and all kinds of things that they have. Therefore, when they come for a few hours a day or few hours a week to the synagogue, they won't be able to sit in a very simple place because they begin to suffer. Why? Because they have a deep mental problem. What's the problem? Something that caused them that they always need this drug. This is another form of drug addict, meaning you're addicted to material. That's why if you take one of these fancy people and put him in a simple, very small, very, very simple car, the entire ride he will suffer just from the fact that he sits in an ordinary car and not in his fancy $200,000-$300,000 car. It will mentally make him suffer. But the root of the problem is, what's the root of the problem? Why a person will be so powerful and hungry for money and step over people and do all kinds of illegal things against the Torah just to get the money, because he cannot imagine his life a day without the power that money gives him. It's not really the actual holding the money. There are different reasons why different people are so greedy. Let's analyze it. Sometimes it comes from greed. Some people, they're not so much into materialism. They only enjoy the knowledge that they're gaining millions. Another million, wow. Another million, wow. Another million, wow. That's it, the entire life. 40, 50, 60, gaining millions. One day he'll die, leave it all to his children. The government will take half. No. But every day of his life, it gave him an illusion of happiness. Why? Another million went this month into my account. Wow. It's great. I made it to this goal. And then another goal. But that's it. He doesn't enjoy. He doesn't buy fancy clothes. He doesn't fly business. No, he's not into... everybody say, wow, this guy's rich. He looks so down to earth. That's his nature. He's not looking for physical pleasure. The greed and the running after money and killing everyone around him in a business is just for the knowledge that I'm gaining more and more money. When Hashem one time give a person like this a smack and send Madoff to take half of his money, some of them commit suicide. You ask, why did he kill himself? Because he had $200 million and $100 million got wiped out in a minute. So in his life, 20 years of hard work gaining this money went down the drain. It was all for nothing. He cannot live with himself. He killed him. But you have an extra 100 million. What are you so worried? I was never worried about not to have enough money to live. I had a goal to keep progressing and gaining more and more money. Since I went back 20 years in one shot, I gave up. I surrender. He doesn't want to live. Or he goes into deep depression. And I've seen it hundreds of times over the years. So that's the root of the problem, is just to gain. But nothing to be flashy or to run after delicious and fancy, grandiose thing. No. Sometimes a person runs after money because he's a person that loves and have a lot of physical desires. Money will get him nice cars and fancy home and all kinds of toys and women and vacations and a lot of different things. As results of that, he works so hard and he kills himself. He comes home at 10 o'clock at night. What for? How can I live in a weekend without fulfilling my desire? How can I not sit by my boat and enjoy the view and the mountains and the fish and, and the good whiskey? How can I live without it? So for that, he's willing to torture himself most of his life for the 10% of his time to have physical pleasure. And that's, by the way, most of the people in the world. That's why they run after money. The words of the Gaon Mivilna, this is, of course, everything I just told you. It's not my explanation or the way I analyze it. It's based on Chazal, based on the Gemara, and based on right now the words of the Gaon Mivilna, one of the biggest rabbis in the history, yes? And he say, in order for you to know, how do I overcome this greed, this desire to gain money? How do I overcome that? First, I have to analyze my personality and come to the right conclusion why I am so hungry for money. If I have enough money, let's say, to live in the next 20, 30 years, enough money, why will I still run and kill myself if you're 60, 70, still go to work early in the morning and stay late? What is the source of this desire? Once I will realize what really scares me, what scares me? Not to have pleasure in life? That people will not respect me in the shul? Many people give a lot of donations in public only, not for the purpose of helping the cause or the synagogue or the yeshiva. Everything behind what they do is to gain honor and power and respect out of everyone. It's very good feelings for proud people that people bow down to them and pay attention to them because they know they're rich and powerful. That's why in today's world, especially here in America, all the candidates to become president of the United States are powerful people. You don't find a poor person becoming the president of the United States for the last few generations, perhaps. Every one of them. This guy's a movie star, this guy's a tycoon, this guy's a billionaire. Why is it? Someone that is just a smart, very intelligent professor with lots of knowledge doesn't have the power and the connection with all these monster giants corporation to support someone like that. This is usually how it goes. Why? Because people translate money as power. This is now the mayor of New York, is a multi-billionaire of $30-40 billion, immediately decided that he's worthy of being the president of the United States. If he was a poor person, would he even run? No, of course not. First of all, they made the system in such a way that you need a lot of money to start the process. For advertisement, you need a lot of money. Most people gain money from other people. But he has enough money. I think he blew up millions of dollars just to announce that he's going to become a president. This is how it works. Rav Shlomo would bring proofs that from the restriction of a Kohen Gadol, the Kohen Gadol cannot be one of the people that decide if to make a leap year or not. Let's see, if you're Kohen Talmid Chacham, but you're also Kohen Gadol. You say, I want to participate in a committee that decide if this year we're going to add one more month to the calendar, like they used to do it manually, Adar Aleph and Adar Bet, first Adar and the second Adar. When Passover falls too short, like around March, which is still cold in Israel, so what happened? It's not spring yet. So they push every 2 to 3 years, they push another month into the calendar manually. They see when it's falling. This year we make it a leap year, another month, meaning this year we'll have 13 months. How many extra months you add to the calendar? Every 19 years you add 7 more months. That's how it is. That's why the Hebrew and the non-Hebrew dates falling on the same date every 19 years. That's how it is. So now, why the Kohen Gadol cannot participate in a decision? Listen carefully, Rabotai, we'll learn a lot from here. Because he's worried about Yom Kippur, that he has to immerse into the mikveh, into the water. And if it's going to be March, it's freezing, it's cold, he's thinking, I'm going to suffer from this, going into the water, coming out, it's freezing. Remember, they didn't have towels like we have today. It wasn't so fancy. They didn't have heat in the mikveh like today. Today wouldn't be an issue, but back in time it was critical. So because in his subconscious he's so worried about the freezing day, that how much he has to go 5 times into the mikveh, in and out, he's going to freeze all day, immediately he wants to push to add 1 more month, even though it's not necessarily needed. Why? Because of personal reasons. Cannot be objective. We see from here, whenever it comes to your personal feelings and personal pleasure and gain, immediately you become blinded and cannot reach an objective, honest decision. Unbelievable. And what do we see? That the problem is so internal, so deep into the subconscious, that even the most holy person in the world, Kohen Gadol, he goes into Bet HaMikdash and comes out alive. In the second temple, almost all the Kohanim who went in died. They did not come out. There were Kohanim Gdolim for a few months. They went in Yom Kippur and they died. They had to pull them with a rope that they tied to their legs because no one is allowed to go in. So they pulled them out, except 4 which were righteous. Every one of the Kohanim was not worthy. That's how bad he was in the second temple compared to the first one. The Gemara brings the list. So what do we see? Even a real worthy Kohen Gadol, like in the first temple, and the 4 in the second temple, that they're such holy people, they come in and out and they leave every year. Yochanan Kohen Gadol, 8 years, went in and came out alive 8 years in a row. Unbelievable. Even someone like this, they tell him, I'm sorry, you cannot participate in a decision if to postpone Passover or not. Because remember, if you had one more Adar, it comes before Nisan, before the month of Passover. It pushed Passover to around April, or end of April, or middle of April, which is very pleasant in Israel by then. It can be 75, 80 degrees already. Oh, very nice. So, we see how everything that relates to you immediately clog your judgment. What do we see from here? What's the advice for it? A person cannot reach control when it comes to his personal gaining. How can he reach control? Can he reach control? When it's somebody else, he can use his brain in a cold way and analyze things correctly. Why? It's nothing to do with me. But when you analyze other people, if you are an honest person, then you would say every once in a while, what's with me? I have the same issues like this guy. He came to cry to me about his problem, about his relationship problems, about his depressions, about what's getting him angry. But I am just as bad as him. That's a wake-up call for me. Am I better than him? And a person begins to learn and analyze himself more naturally through other people's experiences. You understand? And this is it. And this is the words of Rabbi Israel. And it says, this is what it says, Rabbi Israel Misalant, לזאת ישים האדם אל ליבו, לזכות את הרבים לעוררם. A person should pay attention carefully to merit the public, to wake them up, to check carefully, להתבוננות, היראה והמוסר, the fear and the ethics. Because in the eyes of a human being, when the eyes of the human being are open to check others, to know and to recognize their problems, because they need a lot of ethics and correction to their actions, that's when a person with full strength will stick to the ethic and to learn what's the right way to teach the other people how to behave. And while he's doing it to help the people who comes to him, obviously it's going to affect him as well. And zchut harabim, and the merit of the public will all be his merit. Everything will be depending on him. And therefore, slowly, he himself will improve himself and constantly improve it. And that's the remedy of the body and the soul. As the words of Chazal, our sages in Masechet Yoma, page 87, Kol hamzaket harabim en chet ba'al yado. Someone that merit the public, teach them how to keep mitzvot, teach them how to become religious, teach them Torah, teach them about the purpose of life, teach them how not to be fakers, teach them how to improve their personality, warn them from all kinds of fakers not to fall in their hands. Someone like that have special connection that he himself does not fall into those sins. And the question is why? Is it some kind of a gift from God that protects you not to make sins? Could be. That's one reason. But there is another reason. It's simple common sense. All the time I learn to teach people what to do, what not to do, because I'm in this business of teaching. It keeps me on track. 100%. The Rambam, in the laws of Kiddush HaChodesh, renewal of the month, chapter 4, Halacha 11. This is what the Rambam writes. En moshivim li'ibur hashana lo melech. You don't put a king to participate in a decision if to add one more month to the year. And not Kohen Gadol. Kohen Gadol, we already explained why. Why king? Because his soldiers and the wars, he may say, for my soldier not to freeze, let's do it in this way. And Kohen Gadol, because of what we say, because of the cold weather, so they have personal hidden reasons. By the way, we're not talking about crooks here. We're talking a king like David HaMelech, like King Chizkiyahu, most righteous king. and Kohen Gadol, there's no question about his righteousness. He himself does not know why he fights argue to add one more month. It comes from his subconscious, because his brain, his subconscious is so afraid of the freezing weather that he had last year or the year before, that automatically he does not see the picture clearly, which is very, very interesting. That's called things that come from the Tat-Muda, from the subconscious. Rab Shlomo also brought the word of Rabbeinu Hananel in Masechet Megillah in Gemara, page 25. Amar Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Chanina say, everything is in the hand of heaven except fear from heaven. Nobody asks you if you be a man or a woman, tall or short, generally healthy or generally sick, birth defect, no birth defect, brilliant brain, sharp brain, stupid brain. Nobody asks you where you'll be born, rich family, poor family. Everything is not in your hand, except if to be righteous or wicked. We repeat that many, many times over the years in different lectures. The only thing is in your hand if to be righteous or wicked, to make a sin or to make a mitzvah, a good commandment, a good deed. Shene'emar, as it's written, Ma Hashem Elokecha shoel mi'imach. What is your God asking from you? Will I ask you to do something you can't? Of course not. I won't ask you to fly, because I know you can't fly, you're not a bird. I don't ask you to jump from the Empire State Building, because I know if you jump, you'll die. I don't ask you to dive under the ocean and go to the other side of Europe. Why? I know you're not a fish. I'm not asking from you something that is out of your ability. Right? So we hear from here that Hashem will never ask a person to do something that is not in his hand. There's no obligation in the Torah to be rich, because God, decide who's going to be rich and who's not. There's no obligation to be healthy. If you're sick, you're not getting punished. Maybe that's the test of Hashem to bring you sick to the world. Some people are born with sickness from day one, from childhood. Before they even committed one sin, they're already sick. So what is it? There's no punishment from being sick. There's no punishment for being ugly. There's no punishment for being too tall or too short. Or anything that Hashem knows is not in your hand, there's never going to be a punishment for it. And also no reward for it. You don't get a reward if you have beautiful eyes. You get a reward if you're a pretty woman and you have what to show and you're modest. You don't run around to show it. For that you get a huge reward. So the prettier you are, the more reward you're going to get, because you have more drive to go and show your beauty. But the more pretty you are and the more modest you are, automatically your reward will be accordingly, because we have a rule, lefum tzara agra, according to the sorrow and the effort and the contribution, that's how the reward is going to be. If you have a small contribution, small reward. That's why I always tell people, when it comes to charity, if you're very rich and you give $100, it doesn't affect you. A second later, you don't even remember and you don't even notice it in your balance. If you're poor and you give $100 every week, you feel it. Because right now you cannot afford certain things that you need because of that 100 that you gave for charity. So the wealthier you are, the bigger your donation has to be. You cannot be a multimillionaire and give hundreds of dollars every month. It's a joke. It's one dinner by your restaurant 2-3 times a week. It's not going to affect you. So the more you make, the more you have to give. Meaning, when you give, it has to hurt. If it doesn't hurt, there is a very small reward. Why? Because there's no contribution. If a poor person give a quarter, is he crying over it? Nah. Even a poor person can give a quarter once a week. Is this a contribution for a poor person? No. But if he gives $100, it's a huge contribution. Same thing, a very, very rich person. If a person make $1 million a month, and there are plenty of people here in a community that do it, and they give $50,000 a month donation, that's nothing. They keep $950,000, they only give 5%. They don't even reach their meiser. It's nothing. And people like this must give a lot more than 10%. 20% and even more than that. Why Hashem give you so much money? To help the community, to help the yeshivot, to make baalei tshuva, to do kiruv. What is this? To gain money? Remember, you want to gain money? Let's check what's the root of the problem. So, מה השם אלוקיך שואל מעמך? What am I asking from you? Am I asking from you something that you cannot do? No. Rav Shlomo say, health, parnasa, all these things is not in your hand. One thing is in your hand, if you be righteous or not, if you have Yirat Shamayim. And a person cannot reach Yirat Shamayim, fear from heaven, if he will not analyze and find what moves him. What are the powers hidden inside my subconscious that always make me angry when I see certain things? That always make me run and do the same sins whenever it happens. What are the sources? Why am I running after money so much? Do I enjoy the vacations and stuff and the material? No, I'm not the type. So what is this? What is it? Some people, they run after money because they have constant trauma to be poor one day. So the more they gain, the more security is supposed to have. Well, you already have security for you, your children, and your grandchildren. Still not enough. I still live this paranoia that maybe one day I'm not going to have enough to eat. That's also coming from lack of confidence in Hashem. That's the root of the problem, no faith. Improve your faith, improve your emunah, you will be less hungry to run and gain money. You don't improve the root of the problem, until the last breath of your life you'll still be hungry for money. It will never end. Rabbeinu Yonah, in his commentary about the Pirkei Avot, chapter 3, Mishnah 15, this is what he says. Chataot, when you say chatat, it's not intentional and intentional sins that a person does when he's a teenager, when he's young. When his desire is boiling and his brain is not so developed, meaning is not so smart. The kid is still not, doesn't have life experience yet. His wisdom did not reach his high. Rav Shlomo brought on these words also the words of the Radak, Rabbi David Kimchi, about Psalms chapter 25. This is what it says. That the explanation of his words is the words of Chazal in the Gemara in Masechet Sotah, the page 3. The Gemara say, "En over avera chote ela im ken nichneset bo ruach shtut." A person commits a sin because a spirit of foolishness or stupidity penetrated his system. That's what caused that person to make the sin. Ruach shtut. It's like temporary insanity. How would a person dare to commit a sin? Standing in front of your king that gives you oxygen and water and food, and you rebel against him, knowing he's watching you? How can it be? The answer is temporary insanity. In a court system, lawyers sometimes argue that their client basically lost his mind for a day or two. Deep depression, lost his sanity, and sometimes the court agree. He's not responsible for what he did. It could have happened to every other person. What do you mean? He just killed people. He killed his own child. Temporary insanity. Some women, after gave birth, they drowned their own baby. Why woman drowned her own baby? Obviously, a woman that temporarily at least was not normal, not responsible for her action. Something deep caused it. Right? And psychiatrists, they understand these things. And that time when this spirit of foolishness enter a person, this evil inclination take over your entire being. You cannot resist it. So there are three powers that a person can overcome, even this insanity and even this spirit of foolishness that penetrates. What is it? One, fear from the punishment. The most productive way not to commit the sin. Second, shame. Imagine what would be if the world will find out. It will be published everywhere what you're about to do. And the third is the brain, the sechel, the intelligence. Meaning, how can I be so ungrateful? How can I do such thing? And there's going to be consequences to it, and I'm going to lose, and it's never going to keep me in the same way like before the sin. That's common sense. But when a person is very young, his desires are stronger than usual, and his mind is weaker than usual. What power he has to overcome this test? Very small one. That's why by him, even intentional sins are considered not intentional. What do you want? He's a little kid. Look at him, 12 years old. He doesn't, even 13, even 14, especially today. Kids are bar mitzvah, they're fully developed? No. In Rabbeinu Yonah about Proverbs, Mishlei, chapter 1, verse 8, he's talking about Ve'anar lo shalmu klei sichlo ad asher yigdal. And a boy and a kid, his brain is not developed fully until he will grow up. And his evil inclination is bad from childhood. So he's following his desires. Sometimes I see the kids, how much they're into food. You have to see, wow, their desire for food. It's unbelievable. It's impossible to stop them with the Coca-Cola and the pizza and the sushi. And you're talking to your child. You say, enough, control your desires. It's like talking to the wall. Because their desire in such young age is so strong, or for candy or for ice cream. You see the kids, how they scream in a supermarket. They don't mind the shame because they don't understand that they're embarrassing themselves because they're young. They scream, they roll on the floor. Why? Because they want the candy or the ice cream, right? So obviously you see a proof. When a kid rolls on the floor and he screams and he does stupid things, obviously his brain is not fully functioning, he's too young, and his desire is very, very strong. So he doesn't have the assistance that his brain can give him to overcome his desire. So if he will get used from a young age to follow his desires, when he will grow up, it will be very difficult to detach himself from those desires. Because this is the power of habits. That's it, it's a nature. That's why his parents, his rabbis, his teacher has to assist him from a very young age and will direct him to a very, very right path from a very young age, that once he grows up, it will be his natural way. And that's what you see sometimes with kids over here, that they teach them from very nice and strictly. In one end, they give them a level of love, but their parents are on top of them very much. You see from a very young age, like Emma Mash, a little man. He's 13, but he's ready. He's already like 20 in his behaving and his responsibility. On the verse, Chatot neurai upshai al tiskor, that we say it on the Tehillim. We also say it every morning in the prayers. Those are in the time of childhood, we will call them chatot. Why? Because you were not fully capable of overcoming your desire as a child. That's why a person will be judged on those sins as not intentional sins. We're almost coming to an end, Ramash, another few minutes. So, according to this, Rav Shlomo actually said that they made experiments and research about things that are disgusting. Disgust people. They wanted to see if people are disgusted and reject things. It's natural. Is it something internal, or a person only feels like that because of how people treat it? It's a social influence of public that cause you to hate it, or it's actual your nature from within you that cause you to reject it. That's why they made an experiment. So how did they do it? They took children, they let them play with things that are disgusting, and they found out that they never had problems with their life since they were playing with that from a young age. Even when they grew up, they were not disgusted by that. Even though the whole world is disgusted by them, they have no problem with that. Why? Because that's how they raised them. And it looks very natural to them. What do we learn from here? That once you get them used to it from a very young age, they don't look at that as disgusting or weird or crazy things. Why? This is the way I always grew up with. They didn't have problem with this. So this is a proof that a person can get addicted to horrible things, disgusting things, extremely bad things, as a way of growing up, as becoming a part of his nature. And it comes from within him, not because of what society may think about it. We should add to it the words of the Rambam. The Rambam say, the Chachamim, the sages, forbid that food and drinks that is disgusting, such as things that has nose waste or other stomach waste, or what we call today all kinds of dirt and germs and this and stuff like that. They say that a person is forbidden from eating and drinking in dirty things, that the spirit, that the actual being of a human being suffers from it. Also not to eat with dirty hands, that's why you always have to wash the hands before you eat. And to make sure that everything you eat on is washed very carefully. Why? Because it's all falling into a sin from the Torah, that the Torah says, Al teshakzu et nafshotechem. Don't make your actual soul despicable, meaning filthy. And someone that eats in dirty things or is not keeping hygienic, is not hygienic, so they take him to Bedin and they hit him with a whip to warn him, don't do this. So the question is why? First, to help him not to get sick. Second, not to discuss everyone around him. It can ruin his whole life. People would look at him as a crazy person. So, what we see, the Rambam finish, everyone who is careful about these things brings holiness and purity to his spirit and become more pure to the service of servicing the Torah and Hashem. Shene'emar, as it's written, v'yitkadashtem, you have to make yourself, you have to sanctify yourself. V'yitem kedoshim, you should be holy because I'm holy. Holy, a part of being holy is always being clean. Not to be sweaty and smelly and dirty and have all kinds of dirt on your body. Once you go out of the bathroom, you always have to clean yourself with water, with soap. Not like some people clean with dry, which they never ever clean one day of their life. And all their prayers have big problems. Sometimes people ask, why Hashem never listens to me? You have waste from a bathroom on your skin, even a little bit. And you expect Hashem to accept your prayer when you're like this, despicable. So you have to be always extra clean. Not to talk about that people that are not clean, many times would actually ruin their relationship and marriage, or their shidduchim. They smell bad, they don't take care of the gums, they don't wash their hair, they have denture falling all over the shoulders, and their nails are long and dirty, and all kinds of things like that makes the woman, and she's very disgusted by him. And if he smokes and he smells, and Shem Yirachem, this is against the Torah, Rabotai. This is actual sins from the Torah. You tell this person, come eat pork, it will look at you like you're crazy. I'll eat pork, I'll die, I won't eat pork. Why? Eating pork is one sin from the Torah, but the way you behave, it's every second a sin from the Torah. When you're not clean, when you're not smelling good, when things like, and not to talk about the Chilul Hashem, that makes everyone around you disgusted and if you have a yarmulke on your head, or if you're a religious woman and people knows it, now they are more disgusted. Why? I don't want anything to do with religion. Why? Because I saw this religious guy and girl, that's the way they dress and that's the way they smell, and I don't have to tell you the consequences of that, as it is. We find that naturally brothers are opponents to each other. Yes, they may love each other, it's true, but they have a competition with each other, which creates jealousy. As the Midrash in Tanchuma says on Shmot chapter 5 verse 27, it says that brothers are not exactly hating each other, but having tension between each other. We have to understand why is it. Rav Shlomo explained the tension. This tension comes from one brother stealing the attention from the other brother of the parents. Meaning, when you were the firstborn, everybody gave you the attention, then he came and he took the attention. Or even when you both of you grew up and the parents give more attention to one and not to the other, automatically, like we saw Joseph and his brothers in the Torah. Or because you know you have to divide the property with him, so basically he bites a big piece from yours. And this is words of Rashi in Masechet Kiddushin, page 80, it's written that the brothers from the mother, they don't have the same father, but they have the same mother, two different fathers, they less compete with each other. But brothers from the father, they more compete with each other. Why? Because of money issues. The wealth of the father will have to be split between them. And if they have two different fathers, there's no competition. I get my father's estate and you will get your father's estate. So money, unfortunately, always in the end makes people jealous and hate each other and all these things that we see every day. So, this is another example. Also, we can recommend what the Hasidim said, that sometimes mechutanim, two families that marry their children together, are closer to each other than actual biological brothers. That you and your brother, the two families are not so close, or two sisters. However, when your children, your daughter got married to somebody, you became so friendly, a family with their parents, that you are much closer sometimes than your actual sister and brother. So what do we see over here? We have in the Torah an example for that. Esav sonel Yaakov. Esav hates Yaakov. Sheneemar vayomer Esav. Esav say in his heart, when my father will pass, I'm going to go and kill him. Or that the tribes, all the brothers, hated Yosef, as it's written, Vaisneu oto, in Genesis 37. So we see in the Torah proof that there is such things, that sometimes brothers will hate each other more than strangers hate each other. Very sad reality, but it is what it is. So if you are in a very good relationship with your brother, don't take it for granted. What do you mean? We're brothers. No. There's a lot of natural tension. So the fact that you get along, you never fight, you always split everything fairly, you want to help each other, that's fantastic. Very, very nice. I heard from Rav Shlomo, what is the definition of psychopathic? Person is in an attack, psycho attack. What does it mean when you say a person is a psychopath? You hear it a lot in English that people say he's a psychopath, but not everybody understands what it means, a psychopath. What is a psychopath? Crazy? A murderer? A violent person? A verbal abuser? What does it mean, psychopath? The definition of the word psychopath is mental disconnection. Meaning mentally is disconnected from his heart, from his feelings. That they don't work. In professional psychology, there are 36 people that falls under this category of being a psychopath. But they all have something mutual. What is it? Mental disconnection. Psychopath, his feelings are always the same, whether he's in fear, whether he's in a life-threatening situation, or whether he's in a big happiness. He is emotionally disconnected from himself. That's why he cannot show feelings. You don't find by him, whoa, wow, you're almost dying, and you're like this. Oh, he's the happiest of your life, and something doesn't work. Rav Shlomo brought the words of the Rambam in Ilchot Deot, chapter 1, Halacha 4, that the right path in life is mediocre. Don't be an extremist when it comes to certain things. For instance, don't be angry. Don't fall into anger quickly. Right? Obviously you're not an angel. You cannot go one full life without getting angry. It's very rare. But work on it. What's the total opposite of not being angry? A psychopath, that his feelings don't work. A person that never got excited, nobody ever bothered him, nobody disturbed him, something is also not right here. So, control your anger. So, once in a while you have maybe anger in your heart, someone did horrible thing, it shows you normal. It's no problem, as long as you don't act on it and scream and curse and become violent, okay. But being totally disconnected, nothing bothers you, something here is not, it's very dangerous. Maybe this person is a psychopath. ניתוק של הרגש, his feelings are disconnected. הרמב"ם writes in 8 פרקים, the only thing I have to run quickly all the way to the other side is not being proud. Stay away from that completely. Be an extremist. Be fully humble. Never brag, never show off, never live for show off. Don't look at people down. Don't think you're always the best. That's very bad, because then Hashem despises you, even if those feelings are only in your heart, which you don't dare to express them outside. But Hashem reads your mind and He knows what's inside. And if you are an arrogant, proud person, automatically you fall into this horrible verse that it's written, To'avat Hashem kol gvalev. It's despicable, abomination in the eyes of Hashem, someone that is proud in his heart, and needless to say, from outside of his heart, right? So the good things are the average. The average, meaning be an extremist to one side or to the other side, both are not good. You gotta be normal. I never eat anything tasty. You're mentally sick. I will never dress nice. You're mentally sick. I would never want to be with a woman. You're mentally sick. All these extreme things are not good. The only thing you are allowed to be an extremist is when it comes to pride. That's what the Rambam writes. If you don't have feelings, someone you love just died, you act as normal. Sometimes you find people like this. You just had, I had one student that he owned an office in trading. He used to do day trading. One time only I came to his office for 5 minutes. It was in Queens. And he had a partner, a Russian Jew. I was sitting in front of his computer, and everybody over there told me, you see this guy? This guy has no heart, no emotions. Look at him now, how he functions normally. He's $250,000 down on his stocks today. Look at him, it does not even bother him. There are days he was up hundreds of thousands of dollars. You don't find anything by him. Not a sign of screaming, yes, wow, nothing. It's a person heartless. Someone like that can do very well in stock, yes, because the emotion makes people panic and do a lot of mistakes. But someone like that can very easily also be a murderer. Can kill someone and won't bother him, or light a cigarette, like the Nazis. They were putting babies in the oven and drinking wine after that. Did not even bother them. That's the definition of a psychopath. Nothing ever makes him have a tear, or excited, or anything like this. These people are very, very dangerous. The Gemara, in Masechet Megillah, page 28, the Gemara says, Sha'al Rabbi et Rabbi Yoshua ben Korcha. Rabbi asked Rabbi Yoshua ben Korcha, B'ma erachta yamim? How did you live such a long life, Rabbi? He told him, give me a blessing. He said, I'm giving you a blessing that you should live half of my life, meaning half of my years. It looks more like a curse, not a blessing. And he asked him, that's it? He said, it says like this. He was wondering, that's all you're wishing me? Rashi explained, it said that if you would live long life, you would limit your children's life. how your children will evolve as long as they're under your influence. You are the king, you are the president of the company, you would like to dominate for many, many years. In the meantime, they grow, they become 30, 40, 50, and he's still in a company, 8 years old, and he's still the boss. Leave something for your children. So he's actually giving him a blessing, but from his point of view, it's like Chas v'Shalom giving him a curse. You are a president, and your children will be nothing as long as you are alive. Rav Shlomo say, what do you understand from this Gemara? That children that grow under successful fathers, his father is a big rabbi, his father is a big president, or something like that, a big politician, a senator, whatever the case may be, automatically these children have harder times to develop, because they always have in their subconscious the need to fulfill society expectation. No, your father is such a giant rabbi, you must be just as good. You must be just as great business person. You must be also a great politician. Your father is a judge, you have to be a judge. Your father is a big lawyer, you have to be a lawyer. You know, your father is a great athlete, you have to be just as good. It's not always work. And they don't always have the talent, and it's not always the same purpose in life. Who's to say that he has to be also a rabbi? Who's to say that that's his mission in life? So Rav Shlomo say from here, we also can learn from the words of the Tiferet Israel in Masechet Avot chapter 4, Mishnah 14. It says like this, Heve gole lemakom shel Torah. Go to a place of Torah. If you live in a place there's not enough Torah, move to a place of Torah. What does it mean, gole? Gole means exile. One, get out of your parents' home and go far away to yeshiva. Over there they make you your own human being, your own man. You're not under the influence and the competition with your father or with your mother. Right? Go to a place that over there you won't feel the presence of a successful parent, that over there you'll be able to grow up. By the Goyim, they send their children to academies with dorms for a few years. And over there they actually don't have the stress of competing with a successful parent. Sometimes it works beautifully, sometimes who knows what happened. They can go completely off the way. Same thing by us. By us, what do? We send our children to yeshiva. Not every child agrees to go far away to yeshiva. Some kids are afraid. They don't feel confident to go to a different country or far away city, to be in yeshiva, to dorm there. So you have to obviously know what child you're dealing with. But for some kids, it was the greatest thing in their life. As soon as they left the house and they stayed in a dorm, they actually became more confident. They actually, all their talents exploded beautifully and bloomed beautifully. While they're under the influence of a charismatic parent or very talented or famous. And some of this, by the way, I've seen it over the years. Throughout the years, I've seen a lot of rich kids that comes from a rich family. They refuse even to accept money from their parents. You tell them, well, your father is so rich, why do you have to work as a waiter? Why you have to pay your own student loans? I don't want anything from my parents. I want to make it on my own. They actually make it the mission of their life. Why? I will build myself out of nothing. That nobody can come and tell me, oh, you're successful because your father gave you a few $1 million. Of course, this comes from pride and from insecurity. It doesn't come from a positive thing, because if your father is a generous person, he wants to help you, and you can take his help and make it a lot bigger, what's the problem? That's a nice shortcut in life. You have more time to learn Torah, because you did not start from zero, you start from the middle. Half of the way was done for you. But people have their ego, and they don't want people to talk. It makes them feel not important enough. That's why they want to do it. Sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes the kids is the other way around. They want to live, and they want their parents to support them for the rest of their life. And that's also very bad, because these people, if one day their parents will not be able to give them money, they are finished. They cannot do anything. They're 30 years old, and there's nothing he can do. He needs to live by his parents, he needs his parents to pay his rent. Every month he calls his father, can you help me out with the rent? That's also not good, because these people will never be independent. Sometimes the only way to teach a person to swim is to throw him to the deep water. Let him struggle and fight. Of course, you supervise him that he won't drown. You can always throw him the rope to save him. But that's sometimes how a person will learn to swim in an hour, when rather it may take him years. Why? You put a person in a no-choice situation, and he must get up and begin to fight. As long as you spoil them and give them, you actually do a bad thing to them. Because one day you won't be around, and these people will not be independent. That's why in the end of the Gemara in Masechet Kiddushin, the Gemara said that every parent has to teach his son some kind of a profession to do, to be able one day to support himself. The conclusion over there, that if a person learns Torah and that's his profession in life, is becoming a Ben Torah, he doesn't need anything else. Why? The conclusion over there, Amar Rabbi Meir say over there, look at the animals, look at all the animals. They don't work, they have everything they need. The whole world was made for us people. They all were created to serve us. They have everything they need. They don't need to go and to learn and to profession and to go to work. They have their food. In nature, everything is natural. And we were created by Hashem to serve Him. We will not have what we need if we do what He wants us to do. How can it be such thing? So conclusion, teach your children Torah. Teach them to love Torah. If they will be in Torah, don't worry about it. Hashem will take care of all their needs. Reality-wise, 2,000 years later, was he right? Absolutely. You have today in the world about 150,000 learners of Torah. About approximately, of course we never know the exact number. Some people learn and it's not an official yeshiva, it's not recognized by the government, so they don't have them in a statistic. It could be more, it could be less, okay. But it's definitely tens of thousands of people. And it's not just now. It was like this a few years ago and the generation before. There's a lot of learners of Torah throughout the last 2,000 years. And in reality, we always say in Birkat HaMazon, נער הייתי גם זקנתי ולא ראיתי צדיק נעזב וזרעו מבקש לחם. I grew up, I was a kid, I became old man. I never saw any righteous person starving that doesn't have what to eat. He's serving Hashem and Hashem left him to die. This is with the exception of epidemic or Holocaust or pogroms or stuff like that happened in the world. Yes, there were cases like this and the whole world suffered and many, many people died. That's a different story. Same thing now. Pandemic, it affected everybody almost. But in general, I will be poor because I'm learning Torah, meaning I will not have what to eat. Poor, yes, you can be. You don't have money to buy a fancy car or a big home. That's possible. But the Torah says, what's better? To be down to earth, simple, and to live very simple, materialistic life. Your materialism will be in the lowest level, or better to be flashy and rich and all these things. The Gemara says clearly better to be poor. As long as you have what to eat and you don't need, God forbid, to make sins and steal to feed your children. As long as you survive, that's better than to be a very rich person. The question is why? It's written, Pad b'melach tochal. You should be ready to eat bread with salt, and mayim b'mesorat tishteh, simple water you drink, nothing fancy, just like the animals come and drink. And al haaretz eta yashen, you're ready to sleep even without a mattress on the floor. V'chayei tzar ata chai, you live life of sorrow and full of challenges. And if you are like that, ashrecha ba'olam hazeh v'tov lach la'olam haba. And if you live like that, how lucky you are in this life, and it's great for you for the next world. Great for you for the next world, obviously we all understand. But what does it mean, ashrecha ba'olam hazeh? I mean, how lucky you are in this world that you barely have enough food to eat, and you eat very simple and everything with measurement, and you have only one suit or whatever the case is. What does it mean, lucky you are? Yes, because if you get used to live with the minimum necessity, you have less anxiety, less fear, less headache, less problem. Where rich people have factories, store, problem, bank, loans, employees, the manager didn't show up, lawsuits, competition, problems. Lots of people come and they're jealous with them. They always have this problem. The amount of headache that he may bring. I remember one time I went to a wedding with this billionaire, famous billionaire, and he came over there to the wedding. It was a religious wedding, and he sat down to eat a piece of chicken, this multi-billionaire. And immediately there was 25 people waiting online in the middle of a wedding to ask him for charity. Such an embarrassing moment. Because you usually don't get to have a meeting with a person like this. You're never going to make it to his office or anything. So now it's an opportunity. Now he's sitting right there. Can I speak to you a few words? I'm miserable, such and such. Would you be able to help me? He has no privacy. Can't even go to a public place without all these schnorrs comes right away. Can you help us? Can we do this? Can I come to your office? Can I make an appointment? Would you agree to meet with me? All these things. They never have rest. That's why some of them walks with bodyguards whenever they go. Why? Because always people going to jump and intimidate them. To conclude, Baruch Hashem, we finished this series, exactly even number 10 lectures. I would like to encourage each one of you not just to watch the entire 10 lectures, because it's a necessity for life, to make sure you share it with everyone you know, before they get married, while they are married, even when they are divorced, which means they're trying to get remarried. Everybody must watch it. And now it's not only about marriage. Remember, this series was not just about how to behave with your spouse. No. It was in general about psychology, about relationship. Even two partners in a business, even between a parent to his son or daughter, even between brothers. We learned so much in this series. Some people, they judge the lecture by the name of the lecture. Unfortunately, it's very stupid, very, very stupid, because some of the best lectures, sometimes don't have a lot of views. Because whoever named it with a name that doesn't sound so interesting. On the other hand, some lectures that were not the best, but they had some bombastic names, had 10 times more views. Why? Because people go by the cover of the book, not by the actual book. So that's Baruch Hashem an obligation. I would like also to encourage everyone to sponsor Kiruv now more than ever. Even now the pandemic is slowly going away. We don't know. It may come back. Every once in a while you hear there's new cases. You never know. There's still no guarantee. We are slowly coming back to the synagogue. There's no guarantee. God forbid in a week or two all of a sudden it can come again and say, well, we tried but it doesn't work. Again we have to close. God forbid. We are petrified just from this option. We don't know. And regardless, even if we are safe now, even if the danger is behind us, even if in a month from now it will be fully over, we should never be ungrateful. And nothing makes God more happy than people who sponsor and donate money to spreading the Torah of Hashem. But just not to sponsor Torah by speakers that teach the truth, which is very rare today. I repeat, unfortunately, it's very rare today. There's a lot of speakers out there in YouTube. Not only it's not mitzvah to listen to them, it's a huge sin to listen to them. Some of them has the nerve to make on Zoom now. I heard one of them, Santa Claus, is making a seminar with $180 cost to listen to his garbage. Not only you have to pay for deeping your hell by listening to this infidel. Everything is the opposite in this world. Mamash, those who give you treasure, they're begging you to come and take it and for free. And you playing games if you want to listen or not. And those who murder your soul and push inside heresy and nonsense and kfirah, infidels like this, that do not know even the principles and they always contradict what the Torah wants to say, they have the nerve to charge money. This is the world we live in. What can you do? Same thing Hussein Obama charged $100,000 or $200,000 to come speak his nonsense. And he has a lot of customers. University love infidels. They'll pay them any amount of money. Same thing that Christian missionary Nazi that wanted to come to Boca Raton, and they were willing to pay him $36,000 for 45 minutes of speech of heresy to speak about his friend JC that he idolized. The Orthodox synagogue were willing to pay him. Why? Where the lie dominant, don't look for logic. Baruch Hashem, Rabotai, you have to know which lectures to sponsor and which lecture to share. If you share one of the lectures of these 14 infidels in my list to others, you will be held responsible for all the heresy they spread. Not only you will be punished for listening to them, you will be punished extra for giving them to other people. You should know that. On the other hand, when you spread the real Torah, the truth of the Torah, without politics, without moving left and right, sticking to the text, bringing the sources, teaching it as it is, if you sponsor lecture like this, your reward is huge. It brings people closer to Hashem, people become better, they make less sins, you will have a share in everything. We spoke about it many times in the past. Unfortunately, you have to remind people at least once a month, otherwise they don't think. Sometimes people will only sponsor only after you remind them. I don't know why they cannot remind themselves. That's the most important thing for them before anybody else. But what can you do? It is what it is. I would like to thank everyone. Thank you, Benji, for making all these trips and making live broadcasts. Sorry for the technical difficulties that we sometimes have. Not everything is in our hand. This is the media we use, and they're not so perfect. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't work. Those lectures, of course, will always be on YouTube later on, and also we're going to make a CD of this entire series. Bezrat Hashem, Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.